Hello folks, welcome to the workshop on a beautiful Sunday evening. It's been one of those fantastic days. We got about 10 centimeters of snow last night, so when we woke up this morning, the countryside looked like a winter wonderland. It was absolutely beautiful. We've had a leisurely day, had a leisurely breakfast, went to church, came home, had a leisurely lunch. I had a wonderful winter's nap. And now I'm out in the shop with a good fire on in the wood furnace there, and I'm going to sharpen some knives. Well, before I talk about sharpening, I thought I'd share a little bit about my journey when it comes to how I sharpen knives. Many years ago, we all carried a pocket knife. And when our pocket knife was dull, we'd pull out our little pocket whetstone, choose the coarse side, spit on it, and rub it and do circles, trying to keep it nice and even. When we thought that was enough, we would spit on the fine side and just repeat the process. And we were able to develop a pretty respectable edge on our pocket knives. And whether it was a pocket knife or butcher knife, or one of our hunting knives, this little pocket whetstone, it really did everything. Well, before I go any further, I want to tell you a little bit about my whetstone. Check this out. This is the pouch that my whetstone came in. As you can see, it's the Ontario Department of Lands and Forests. Isn't that amazing? It's been a long time in Ontario since that arm of the government was called a department. Of course, today they're all ministries. So you can tell that I've had that for a long, long time. So in my teen years, of course, this is what we used. In my 20s, I was hunting with a gang, and one of the guys that came up from the States had this diamond stone or diamond sharpening device. So I bought one. And I used it faithfully for a few years, and it seemed okay, but you know, I could really never develop the edge with it that I seemed to be able to develop with my whetstone. The only thing is, it was a little faster. So I stuck with that for a few years, and about 20 years ago, I was in the US, my wife and I with another couple, and we stopped off at one of those big sporting goods stores that we all enjoy going in, and they had these by the checkout. This knife sharpener has a carbide on top, carbide V-block here, and a ceramic V-block here for sharpening knives. So I would just put my knife on the bench, pull it through the carbide, and then pull it through the ceramic to smooth it out. Well, one thing about this is it's really, really fast. But what I noticed was it took a lot of material off. There'd actually be a pile of cuttings on the bench after I sharpened a knife. And the edge would be a little wavy, and no matter how I tried with the ceramics, I couldn't get it perfect. But again, it produced what I would say was a respectable, usable edge. Well, you know what? I remembered back to my father. When my father sharpened a knife, he used a whetstone just like this. In fact, this was my father's whetstone. I have a coarse side and a fine side. So I thought, I want to be able to sharpen a knife so it's like a scalpel. So it's like a butcher's knife, so it's always like a razor. So after some research, I decided I'd go back to the whetstones. I looked at all sorts of diamond rods and other devices, but I'm a pretty practical guy and I like simple. So I put together this fixture here to hold my stones and to get it up off the table so it's at a comfortable height to work. So now, when I sharpen a knife, all I do is I put the coarse side there, and I probably should be using mineral oil or even water, but out in the shop, water wouldn't be a good idea here in the wintertime, that's for sure. Or any time, because no doubt my stone would absorb it and I'd be afraid of it cracking. So we're going to sharpen this knife here tonight. This is an Ontario kitchen knife made in the USA, and I actually use it butchering, and I really, really like these knives. I just want to take a piece of paper and show you how dull this knife really is. So if I take this knife now and I try and cut a piece, no matter how careful I am, I cannot get a knife to cut that paper. Let's sharpen it, and then we'll give it a test on that same piece of paper in a little bit. So I've got the coarse stone on. I'm going to hold my knife up at about 20 degrees. Quite honestly, when people tell you that they can imagine 20 degrees, there's 90, there's 45, There's 22 and a half, there's about 20. They're better than I am. I hold it at a very shallow angle and I pretend it's 20 degrees. And then I just draw it down and across the stone, and I try and do an equal number of swipes on each side. There. I'd say that's enough on the coarse side. Let's turn this stone over and use the finer side. You'll hear quite a difference in how much finer this stone is and how less it cuts. It's a lot less aggressive than the coarse stone. And when I look at the cutting edge now, I can plainly see abrasion marks from using the coarse side. So when I use the finer side or the medium grit here, it's going to remove a lot of those deep gouges. There we go. And now I think it's time to finish it. This white stone, I guess it was white at one time, it's very, very fine. And again, I really don't know what grit any of these stones are, but this one's very fine. You'll hear it's really, really fine. It hardly cuts anything off. Just a few more passes on this fine stone, and we should be finished. Let's have a look at her. That is a thing of beauty. That cutting edge along there that we sharpened is polished like a mirror. Now, if you have a sharp fish hook, I've been told it should feel sticky as you put it against your fingernail, and a sharp knife should be the same way. It should grab your fingernail, and it does. Well, in the good old days, I would have said, we're done. We have a very sharp knife. Here's something to think about. Anytime you go into a butcher shop, what do you always see but a knife steel? It's either hanging on the butcher's belt, hanging on the wall, but somewhere close by is a steel. And periodically while they're working, you'll see them take a few passes over top of their steel. Well, one of the advantages to doing that when we're using a whetstone is, as we sharpen a knife, just to the nature of us pushing forward on that abrasive surface, we create a very small burr or a feathered edge that gets pushed up. When we turn the knife over and go the other direction, it gets bent up or deflected the other way. Now we can limit the size of that burr by taking even just one pass per side, and that'll all but eliminate it. Or we can grab a knife steel and we can do that. In the good old days, do you remember the leather strop? Here's one from a butcher shop, or a butcher shop. Here's one from a barber shop. Many years ago I was at an auction sale and I bought that probably for $2. And I've used it a few times, but you'll see that some woodworkers and some professional knife sharpeners will strop a knife on a block with a piece of leather on it. Well, we've hit the knife with our steel, we've aligned the blade, we've removed that feathered edge. Let's try it out on a piece of paper and see how it cuts now. Here we go. That's a little bit better than it was before, isn't it? It's amazing. Just a little bit of bork and we've got a beautiful edge on this knife. Well folks, it's getting late and I know my bride's making a wonderful supper in there. I better finish sharpening these knives I've got ahead of me here or I'll be in trouble. Well, we hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks so much for watching and we look forward to seeing you again on Out of the House with Paul.